At this time, we're talking with Annie Miner, a good friend of mine. I'm Eric DeSobe. Annie, how long have we known each other now, you think?
I think you recruited me. No, you didn't. Since 2014 is when I was like, please hire me. And
Yes,
you did.
and it worked out great, always. So
Yeah.
you live in Seattle now. You work for a
Yes.
school system. You have a little bit of everything in your job description. What are you up to these days?
Yeah. So now I work for a school system. I'm director of people operations, which includes compliance, some aspects of hiring around compliance, so credentialing stuff, and all compensation.
I always love talking to you because you're always thinking about ways to keep people, ways to make work better, ways to make salary tables better. Like, what are you concentrating the most on these days, trying to get people to stay at your work?
Ooh, that's a tough question. In general, I think that's a good way of encapsulating what I care the most about, which is like, I believe teaching is the hardest job in the world. Well, that's a grand statement, but I believe teaching is really, really hard. And there's a bunch of stuff that we can do to make it less hard. Like all the stuff in the background. It'd be great if teachers didn't have to think about that. So anything kind of concierge service that can be provided to make someone feel like, oh, I understand this credentialing request of me, or like I have to do every year I have to do this state reporter training. Like what? This feels inaccessible. Oh, you just send it to me and it's all packaged in a bow. Like dope. I can access this right now. I think the biggest challenges for us right now is the reality is that funding for schools is hard and that means there's less of a pot to pay people with. So how do we make sure that we're paying people in a way that feels the best when we don't have a ton to work with? So those are like the big math problems that I think about on a daily basis.
You've seen a lot of the ebbs and flows of the teacher pool, right? Sometimes there's been nobody in the pool. Sometimes there's been a lot. We're both old
Yes.
enough to have seen a couple versions of that. What version would you say you're seeing now?
That is a fascinating question. I was just talking with this with a peer the other day. We are getting a lot of excellent candidates, fully credentialed, folks who maybe have been laid off from somewhere else. So who are like, hey, wouldn't have necessarily considered a charter district before or a district that I don't know the way it operates before, but I'm fully credentialed. Like, do you want me? So we're seeing people that are like pretty dope.
Pretty good.
I think in another version of my life, maybe 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, the people we were getting, we were like, please come into a classroom. We'll do whatever we can on the background to get you. And I mean, there's pros and cons to both of those, right? Like having someone who worked in a lab who now wants to teach biology but has no teaching background, like that's a dope candidate, you know?
There's some hope there.
And having a pathway to get them be able to teach is fantastic. But also having someone who has successfully taught biology for 6 years in Montana, that's also great. Like, so I think there's pros and cons to both, but right now it does feel like we've got a pool and we're just reaching into it and grabbing folks. And thankfully, they are wanting to accept offers.
Are you seeing then too, because the teacher pool is bigger,
Mm-hmm.
there's also folks interested in the other kind of roles that support schools, whether it's thinking about school technology side or the facility side operations? Are all the pools full right now?
I It feels like that to us. One of my jobs or one of the type of work I do is on the back end after someone's been selected is making sure like is your compensation right? Like where are you going to fit? How does this all fit here? And so that means I spend a lot of time looking at someone's resume very deeply and like getting to know them as a candidate after they've been selected. And the caliber of people is like pretty bananas.
Lunch. How are you
Some,
thinking?
some have more creative resumes than others. Some are like, oh wow, you have been in education, but you're really, really qualified for this role. And that's, I find that part of my job pretty motivating because it's like, oh my gosh, like this person's choosing us after having done all this cool stuff. It feels like we have a real like, powerhouse joining us. And I've always enjoyed, I think, that part of talent.
Since you look at compensation and you've approached it in a lot of different ways, different strategies that you've executed over the years, what is your kind of latest thinking or things that you're worried about or excited about when it comes to compensation stuff? Other than, can you just give us a lot of money? We'll dump it in our table.
What am I worried about? What am
Or
I
excited
not
about.
worried about? I mean, there's all the buzzwords that people toss around, right? Like equity, equality, like how do we make sure that everyone's having a similar experience? I think it's really interesting to consider markets and peer markets. You'll often have a teacher be like, oh, well, X district pays more, or a director say, well, this pays more in it or pays differently. And it's really important to consider the size of the organization that or like the scope that an organization has. I think smaller organizations might pay less, but you might actually own more of the work. So considering all of that when you're creating a compensation for a role, I think is you have to be really creative, but also still competitive. So like that balance of being like, oh, we have X amount of money and I want to apply it in a way that's going to get someone who's great, but also there's some real restrictions here. how I spend most of my time is being like, where's the magic sauce here? Um, that's a tough question. I mean, in education, I'm sure you felt this. Like, it's just, it doesn't always feel like there's enough because the people we're hiring are people that are pretty great. And you're like,
Should
I want to give you a ton of money
yeah,
because you have all this great experience.
right, right.
And there's real hard limits there.
I miss working with you because I feel like you and I would have a lot of fun thinking and talking about AI and how it relates to all the work we're doing. Am I wrong? Is your face is telling me I'm wrong?
I'm gonna make you mad. I'm really
Why?
upset about the environmental impact of AI. I'm really upset about it.
The gallons of water that are used every time I say thank you?
Yeah, man, you just killed an aquifer.
Yeah.
That's
Just want
tough.
to say thank you, ChatGPT, for this.
I have been thinking. I mean, just this week, I've been thinking like, what about roles like ours? Like, are we gonna be obsolete soon?
Hmm. No, nope,
Oh, okay. Tell me, what? How are
nope.
you not gonna be obsolete?
The AI is still in my eyeballs. It's still in my brain.
Well,
There has to be some scrutiny and some design. I do think there could be teams of one. So maybe the last person standing could be us. Maybe that's just what happens is we actually don't manage anybody anymore, or maybe they run us out and just get young people to do it. But I still think there's a lot of time before they would try to boot us. And also, I think for education, I want to be a little bit different because at least we still feel the pool is not as deep as yours. It sounds like right now, so there is still a lot of the woo and the sell and the
yeah,
creativity and the execution of
yeah. That's so people based.
yeah. But doing this podcast, talking to folks, I just did one that went up today. She works for Lakeshore and like 1,000 apps in the first hour for any role that they post of any kind, right? And so that level of
And they're all people.
all real people, yeah. So that level of volume, you could see there'd be some value in AI systems, but I just don't see it for what we do. I see a lot of maybe the process pieces after apps are in to some degree, but yeah, I was curious. Are you using it for anything practical right now?
I mean, a lot of data stuff it's really helpful for.
Yeah.
Part of, I mean, because you're more front end talent, I'm more back end talent. Like a lot of it is like predictive analytics. Like, man, at what point are people
Quitting.
needing X support, or at what point are we seeing a spike in folks requesting this kind of support? That kind of stuff, I think is really useful. I did see this. I'm gonna like totally maim this, but I saw this data about a large organization that is using AI to do most of their like HR support. So when someone's like, I need help with my benefits or I need to go on a leave, that definitely I see there's some great use of that there, right? Because a lot of those questions are probably pretty mundane. Like, where's my paycheck coming from? X. But to your point, like there's this huge aspect there of like, I need a human to like
Hmm.
guide me through this in a way that makes it so I'm not gonna procrastinate it. I'm gonna ask questions that I might feel like kind of scared about asking. I need a human who's going to be able to respond to like my specific situation. And that kind of thing, I just feel like so of two minds about it because I'm like, great, we can definitely get like those basic questions can get answered way faster and people will feel like super taken care of from their organization. But the other aspect of like, I want to feel like someone cares about me. That's what's going to make me stay somewhere. I don't want to lose that.
I do wonder if that will be the market inefficiency, and then people with their highest retention numbers will end up, say, percentage-wise, having the most in-person contact with people, and that's actually
Yeah,
something
that's
to
a fascinating.
measure. And so the white glove service actually stands out even more, and that's something you promote even explicitly. Like we will make sure that AI does not do X, Y.
Yeah, we're putting that on our job on our postings. We promise once you start here, we will still talk to you.
So yeah, yeah. I wonder for sure. Well, listen. Last thing, you talked to a lot of people who are probably looking for jobs to work with you, or just friends in general who are curious because you work in that world and they're asking you for advice. When people ask you for job advice, what kind of things do you usually tell them to do?
Ooh, that is a great question. People ask me for job advice. I say, what do you want to spend your days doing? Because that connects to how you spend your weeks and your months. I think there's aspects of the work that you and I do that is like pretty bureaucratic. Like there's a lot of like, oh,
Routine
gotta
quality.
get that data in, like gotta get this spreadsheet. I gotta be able to tell them this. Here's the trend. And I feel like people can be demoralized when they realize that, when they're like, oh man, like this job, I thought it was like this big picture thing, but there's also like the nitty gritty stuff. So like make sure you realize the two parts that coexist and make sure you both of them light your fire because that's how you will spend your time. That's one. And then I think this is really meta, but like I think the older I've gotten in my career, I really, really value flexibility. I have two kids, they're young. I clearly work from home, which is a great benefit of the work that I do, but I'm also at schools a lot, which I love. And having to have this place or this space where I get to spend time doing two things, I'm here, I'm there. this is what I need for me and my family at the time. That benefit is not lost on me. And I'm always like, even if a role might feel like, oh, is that the right role for me? If it gives you that other piece where you can really have the life piece, I think that's something to consider.
All right. If people want to work with you, how do they find you? How do they find your org?
They find me on the internet. No, find me on LinkedIn, Andy Miner.
Okay. We'll put all that info in the episode description. Andy, thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. All episodes are up, all the places you get your podcast. You can catch us from the audio standpoint and in stunning 4K. Look at our ring lights. We look amazing. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you soon.